This is a sample chapter from Fitton books. Murder at Tolby Lake by R.P. Fitton, Chapter 3. Hamilton instructed Jones to get out to Tolby Lake and watch for the college's best interest. Jones needed to contact McGill. Maybe McGill's old boss running the paper in his absence could help. As he drove back into town, he called Coco.
What, are you surprised, Jonesy?
No, but my question to you is, who was he with, and who was the woman he smacked in the face?
I'll ask around. Somebody was going to take him out, just a matter of time.
Jones hung up and twisted the radio volume when he heard the disc jockey announce a commercial for the re-election of Herbert Lane for district attorney. The bulbous big-mouth Lane had clashed with Jones on numerous occasions. Jones pictured Lane in his office, stomach bulging from his vest and his gray toupee flat on his large head. The commercial was set to row, row, row your boat. When he turned the station, the commercial played again. Oh, what a nightmare! Jones clicked off the radio and abruptly stopped his Jeep in front of the Enterprise's yellow brick building on Main Street. He exited the Jeep and shook his head as the Herbert Lane commercial repeated in his head. From the sidewalk, the office lights shone over the blinds and the outside shrubs. A lanky man in a blue suit and hat was hunched over a typewriter, and cigarette smoke expanded around his crumpled-rimmed hat. Jones climbed the cement steps and rapped on the aluminum-framed door. He waited, wondering if the student in custody was romantically involved with Davis. Inside the lobby, the man from the typewriter, his wrinkled powder-blue suit as creased as his face, appeared at the door with keys in hand. A multicolored feather pierced his matching cockeyed hat, and a smoldering cigarette hung from the corner of his mouth. He fiddled with the lock, twisted the keys, and opened the door. The heavy lobby smoke irritated Jones's eyes.
3 shots in the chest.
I don't think we've met. I'm Matthias Jones.
Jerry St. Clair. How are you, bub?
He locked the door and stepped back in the lobby. For a few seconds he was unsure where to tuck the keys and finally dropped them in his pants pocket.
And a Hamilton student in cuffs.
Yeah, that's right. But you need to keep this story spiked.
Nobody tells an old cub reporter to spike a story.
Yeah, right. Jones followed him into a side office. Jerry returned to the typewriter, sat at the old creaky wood chair, and pounded on the keys. Don't you use a computer, Jerry?
Word's out on you, Jones.
On me?
Yeah, well, Tom gives you the thumbs up,
he said, typing with both index fingers. Tom got his start with your paper.
Yeah, I was his boss in Philly before I bought the Enterprise. He worked the grind for me on the city desk.
Jones raised his brows as the typing continued.
Sounds like we got a homicide to investigate.
What do you mean? Jones raised his brows. Look, Jerry, my dad was an investigator, and I've investigated a few murders, but
hey, we'll take the friends and associate angle on this one. People like Davis, they come and go over the years. I worked a case in 47, downtown Philly. Guy was tapping every broad he could get his hands on. He liked the skirts.
Listen, Jerry, did McGill leave a number up in Maine?
Incognito, pal, incognito.
I'm going over to Tolby Lake to meet George Strickland, but I think I'll stay clear of investigating anything here. We're both eager to leave for Maine, but I think we'll be leaving late. Jerry nodded and set the cigarette in a dirty ashtray loaded with spent butts. He leaned back and produced a raspy laugh.
You bowing out, huh? I'm going to detail this murder in a series of page 1 exclusives. Didn't think you were yellow.
Jerry stopped typing and swiveled around.
Don't think the old duffer still has it, do you?
I never said anything about...
Listen,
he said, rapping Jones in the ribs.
Spent 40 years in the streets, hotshot. I know how to develop a story and bring in the readers.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
What do you know about newspapers?
I don't.
What?
I said.
What?
Jerry, I don't care, said Jones in a louder voice.
Ah, the coach has a temper. Everyone has a character fault, bud.
Oh, for the love of... Jones grit his teeth as Jerry sat down again and started typing. You've been in retirement.
What, do you got something against old people?
No, I haven't got anything against old people. Jones looked up at the large wall clock above the table. He needed to be out at Tolby Lake. At the edge of the marsh, less than a half a mile past Hanson's Marina, a Hamilton cruiser's lights flashed blue against the brown and white sign for Tolby Lake. Jones wanted Jerry back at the news desk, but the old reporter had grabbed another pack of cigarettes and climbed inside of Jones's Jeep. Jones ordered him not to smoke until he left the car, but the stale smoke still permeated his suit. For 15 minutes, he listened to stories from the Philadelphia streets as witnessed by Jerry St. Clair during the past 40 years. Jones slowed with the cruiser, and the gray-haired Tully, toothpick in his teeth, stepped from the cruiser.
Matthias?
Hey, Tull, what's up?
Potty boy got blown away. Hey, that's a great headline, Copper. I think I'll use that in the morning edition.
Morning edition, said Jones in a low voice. It's only one daily edition. Jerry leaned out the window.
Tell me there, officer, what's the dirt on the broad under arrest?
Dirt? What dirt? She's a student. I'm watching the entrance to Tolby Lake. Ask George about the details.
The copper wants money, does he?
Asked Jerry, grinning. Hey, watch it, old-timer.
They bring her downtown yet?
What? Asked Tully, opening his eyes wide to Jones. He spoke in a lower voice. This guy's right out of a dime novel.
Hey, I need a butt,
said Jerry from the passenger side.
Stop stalling, Jones. Get this jalopy moving.
The road is unpaved and pretty bumpy, Matthias, said Tully. Jones, his anticipation about leaving on vacation nixed, waved to Tully and shifted the Jeep onto the sandy road through the woods. The Jeep bounced over the ruts and potholes carved within the constricted road. He crawled in first gear for at least 10 minutes, the Jeep bounding deeper into the woods. In the mirror, Jerry held a fresh cigarette between his finger and a transparent butane lighter ready in the other hand. More cruiser lights through the branches alerted Jones to the activity near Tolby Lake. The road leveled out under the pine trees, and he maneuvered the Jeep next to an A-framed house with open sliders and a screen door fenced in yellow police tape. Lights from a single cottage across the road cut through the darkness in the woods. He grabbed his cell phone and exited the Jeep. Two Prince William cops guarding the sliders stepped forward as he vaulted the police tape. Jerry's butane lighter ignited to his right, and the veteran newspaper man puffed the cigarette red. Jones turned toward the sliders, but another vehicle caught his attention beyond the cruisers. Professor Wilmot's white Audi parked under the pines next to a yellow Ford Focus. What is she doing here? Jerry, cigarette stuck in his mouth, pushed past Jones. With notebook open and pen in hand, he approached the two officers at the sliders.
You need to make a run on all the junk boxes here in the yard.
Jones recognized the blond cops. How you doing, Rick? Is Kevin here? No, not yet, Matthias. You're usually here before Clayton. Well, I've got company, said Jones, twisting his lips. Jerry exhaled but left the cigarette in his mouth as he spoke.
Your boss know you're halting the press from an official investigation?
Come on, Jerry, chill out, will you? Said Jones, moving up the stairs. He saw Strickland talking with Wendell Harris behind a striped sofa. They're not halting anything.
Nobody needs to tell an old street reporter how to do his job.
Jones winced and shook his head. Rick brought them both through the sliders. Jones scanned the lake house. A massive stone fireplace extended up the wall to cedar slats neatly fitted in the cathedral ceiling. Upstairs bedroom doors were closed behind a balcony rail. The place had a fresh cedar smell and was clean. On the sofa was a thin wood pole wrapped in clear plastic. A chalk outline and dark blood on the braided rug indicated Professor Davis's demise.
Happy vacation, Matthias,
said Strickland, holding the clipboard next to Wendell. Are we going?
Yeah, we're going. Maybe later in the morning. Kevin can handle this.
Good, said Jones, looking at the pole. Somebody hit him?
He was shot in the head, not hit.
Or maybe it was that rumble last night at Club Max. Well, I'm not sure it was a rumble. Jerry's smoke slowly masked the fresh cedar. He plucked the cigarette from his mouth, gripped his pen, and held out his notebook.
So, can I quote you on that, Chief?
Strickland turned from Jones. Quote me on what?
I said, can I quote you on the fact that you're abrogating your duties as chief and leaving on vacation?
St. Clair, what the hell are you doing back in town?
What are you trying to do, stonewall, Chief?
Strickland half grinned as Jones shrugged his shoulders.
Yeah, you can quote me on that, or whatever the hell else you want to quote me on.
What happened up here, George?
Pretty cut and dry. What concerns me is a report from a Mrs. Nickerson across the street. A Lincoln Continental or town car was up here from Massachusetts. We traced it to a Leonard Trainer. He works for Albert Fiore.
Fiore? You mean the crime family? Asked Jones.
Yeah, the crime family. Look, I just wanted to go to Maine. I don't want to be checking out a lead on Albert Fiore. And another car, a silver Porsche owned by a Jake Corbis.
Well, at least it's not Fiore. Strickland put his hand on Jones's shoulder and nodded.
Well, he works for Fiore, too. Any other questions?
2 cars are out front. One of them is Professor Wilmot's. Well, my question is, why is Zoe Wilmot's Audi up here?
I didn't know you kept such close tabs on her. Then again, Bucky Driscoll told Annie Dewars that you and she...
Well, somebody should take away Bucky's radio, and Annie Dewars should mind his own business.
Well, as far as Wilmot goes...
Strickland walked around the sofa and glanced at Jerry clutching his pen. Apparently the girl knows her, and she called for Dr. Wilmot before they sent LG away, and then they called another lawyer. Oh, Hamilton will love that. Then Jones thought, you called her Dr. Wilmot?
Are your comments part of the record?
Asked Jerry. The ash on his cigarette had grown long, flaky, and top-heavy.
What is this? I don't want everything I say coming out in the Enterprise, St. Clair. Ah, you're covering up something.
Strickland's dark eyes opened wide and he pushed his teeth together. Jones moved by Jerry and escorted Strickland to the back sliders. Strickland's deputy, Wendell Harris, smirked as they passed, and Strickland pointed at him.
Don't you start, Wendell. Who, me?
Outside, Jones put his arm around Strickland. George, calm down.
I thought we'd be ready to leave for Maine. It could be a couple days. Did you get through to McGill?
No, we'll have to wait to get him to a phone. Jones furrowed his brow. So what happened up here? Did Amy Pollard confess?
No, not at all. I asked her about Club Max, but Dr. Wilmot told her not to talk.
Did Pollard do it? Strickland was about to answer when he looked inside the sliders. Jerry's cigarette ash fell near another plastic bag on a thick pine table. Strickland shot back inside.
Hey, St. Clair, get the hell away from that.
Saturday night special. Hey, did the broad own the gun?
I don't know that yet.
Jerry stepped forward and held out his pen.
What about the shells?
I have the shells.
Wendell waved another plastic bag with the brass shells.
Right here.
Yeah, what about the prints?
No prints on the guns or the shells.
I need forensics, Chief. Angle of entry, range of the killer.
Strickland pursed his lips.
This isn't a press conference. Call Clayton Morris. He's the medical examiner.
He wandered back to Jones on the rear deck.
I thought we had run him out of town.
No such luck, George. What do you think happened up here?
We recovered a gazillion footprints on the deck and the slider glass. I can't make heads or tails out of it, but I think she came in through the front sliders. Both sliders were open.
He gazed at Jerry talking to Wendell.
No prints on the slider handles either. Everything was wiped clean. Davis had a reputation. We were called to his old apartment off campus last year. He attacked a Prince William woman. Charges were dropped. I think Hamilton Fletcher paid her off. And then shipped Davis out here. There's more about Hamilton and Davis, but I can't tell you that right now.
Relating to the murder?
I can't say. And I don't need Ace in there reporting on that information. I think Pollard entered the house to deliberately kill Davis.
Why would you say that?
Neighbors across the street. The woman saw Pollard over here all the time. Pollard was wild about Davis, and he may have abused her. Mrs. Nickerson has a whole list of license plates. She said exotic dancers, mafia people. Wendell will check out the plates once we get the notebook.
This may be a little bit more complicated, George.
She was here, the gun was on the floor, and Davis is dead. What's complicated?
Jones gazed across the darkened beach area. The outlines of the lake and shoreline were indefinite under the stars. He stroked his chin. Then why are all the slider handles in the gun wiped clean? Strickland closed his eyes.
I haven't talked to her, but I'm convinced that she'll confess once Dr. Wilmot calms her down. Maybe she wore gloves and started to cover her tracks, but panicked.
Oh, come on.
I say latex surgical gloves.
Well, maybe somebody else did it. Strickland held the bridge of his nose.
You know, I've been waiting for this vacation for a year and a half. Isn't that when we first planned it?
Yep.
I just called Herbert Lane.
Jones smiled. The pudgy Lane hated Jones's involvement in any murder investigation. Oh, wake Herbert from his beauty sleep, did you? I heard his silly commercial tonight.
Actually, he was having dinner.
Yeah, liquid dinner. He isn't coming over here, is he? Well, he might be over the station in the morning, or he may send his assistant, Roland Chance. He's a real glamour boy. Gold chains and the works. I don't think I can take Jerry St. Clair and Roland in the same room. How does Wilmot know Pollard? Asked Jones. One of her students. Jones moved to the deck railing. What about the beach out there in the lake? We need daylight for that, my friend. As he stared into the starry sky, Jones was troubled about no fingerprints on the gun. Without bothering Strickland further, he wondered why Amy Pollard would have hung around if she had worn gloves to cover the crime. He followed Strickland back in the house. Strickland wrote something on his clipboard pad as Wilmot's testy voice and a prolonged sobbing leaked out the cracked bedroom door. Jones requested to speak with Pollard. Strickland hesitated until Jones insisted. The police chief recanted and led Jones to the door. Before he fully opened the door, Strickland panned the lake house. Where the hell is St. Clair? Well, he stepped outside for another cigarette, said Wendell. Dr. Wilmot, said Strickland as he knocked. You make it sound like she's an M.D., George. Well, that is her title. She's a professor of literature. The door opened quickly. The rusty-haired Amy Pollard, eyes bloodshot and moist, sat on the edge of a yellow quilted bedspread and clutched a dainty white handkerchief. Wilmot had changed into her jeans, and her long dark hair was brushed, and she wore a teal sweatshirt. She moved forward and blocked the open doorway. Yes, what is it? Matthias and I want to talk with Amy. Well, what is he doing here? Me? What are you doing here? Strickland stepped between them. Matthias has worked with me before. I know this is irregular, but sometimes he has insights into these things. Amy Pollard, a blue miniskirt tight over her petite body, stood. I didn't kill Brad. Amy, you don't need to say anything until Miss Merkel Brown is present. Oh, Miss Herkel Jerkel? Asked Jones. You're an idiot. I told Amy she didn't have to speak until her lawyer arrived, said Strickland. Wilmot's heightened dark eyes darted between Jones, Strickland, and Amy. Her fingers were whitened at the knuckles. Either she was always high-strung or the trauma of the murder had shaken her. Jones's smile seemed to irritate her as he faced Amy. Then who killed him? Amy's eyes veered toward Wilmot. Wilmot creased her brow and shook her head. Chief, this questioning by a layperson is unconscionable. How do you know Amy, Ms. Wilmot? Asked Jones. She's a student of mine. Now that's irrelevant, Chief. I say we forget about any questioning until Ms. Merkel Brown arrives. Strickland moved closer to Amy. This is your call, Amy, not Dr. Wilmot's. Amen to that. Matthias, that isn't helpful. He faced Amy. Well? I have nothing to hide. I will talk to the coach. Excellent, excellent, replied Jones. Wilmot rolled her eyes and paced the bedroom. Would you like to sit down, Amy? No. She wiped her nose with a handkerchief. Drove over here around 7:30. I'm not exactly sure. I pulled in and I walked through the front sliders. The front and not the rear sliders? Asked Jones. Yes. Brad always said. Brad, then you were quite familiar with Professor Davis. What is he driving at? Asked Wilmot. I'm trying to see what type of relationship. I did some outside research on his work here at the college. I was one of his students as well as Zoe's. Zoe? Jones grinned. How do you get so familiar with the students? Wilmot raised her voice again. You have a certain arrogance, Jones. And what kind of arrogance is it? Asked Jones. Stop it, said Strickland. You did work for the professor and he called you up to come over. You have no other type of relationship. Again, she looked in Wilmot's direction. Zoe? She doesn't have to be answering questions like that. Then the relationship with Davis was more than just a student-teacher, asked Jones. Can't you see she's upset? Wilmot stormed over to Jones. And she doesn't need your prurient inferences. Oh, don't spin your words at me, Professor. What happened when you walked inside, Amy? Amy raised the handkerchief to her face and tears erupted. Her wailing intensified when Wilmot accompanied her to the bed and held her. You don't have to continue, dear. I only want to know what she saw, said Jones from the door. Brad was on the floor, she whimpered. Dead. Brad was dead. Are you sure? Asked Jones. Wilmot still held Amy. What did she just say, Jones? I stepped back. It didn't hit me for a few seconds, and then I screamed. Where was the gun? Asked Strickland. On the rug. Jones walked slowly toward the sofa. And you didn't own or use that gun? No. Is that all? Asked Wilmot, leaping to her feet. Strickland turned. Yes. Wendell, bring Amy down to the station. Wilmot raised her hands in the air. Why? I'm holding her on suspicion of murder. She says she didn't do it. You and Merkel Brown can talk to the DA about that. Wilmot nodded, but sent Jones a vile look. Strickland and Jones drifted onto the deck again. George, she's in the wrong place at the wrong time. What? Come on, the gun was on the floor. Trace it. I will. Gloves or no gloves, she was involved with Davis. It sounds like he had it coming. And we'll check out that riffraff passing through here. Coco's going to call me about what happened at Club Max. Good. Jones leaned on the deck railing again. It took me almost 15 minutes by jeep to get in here. When was he killed? Clayton will verify the time of death. So the neighbors saw Amy Pollard arrive. Yep. Strickland dragged his notebook from his pocket and scanned his notes. Pollard arrived sometime during Wheel of Fortune. But she didn't hear the shots. Irene heard a scream. Jones faced his friend. George, how long was Amy Pollard in here before the Nickerson woman heard the scream? I see your point. She didn't walk in and discover the body. Then she must have seen or committed the murder or been too upset about seeing Davis dead. Strickland looked back inside. A few weeks from now, and the cottages will all be open. But now the Nickersons are the only people up here. Strickland looked back inside. What's the matter? Asked Jones. Mr. Pulitzer Prize. Strickland flew through the slider opening. Jerry argued with Amy Pollard and Wilmot on the sofa. St. Clair, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Ever hear of the First Amendment, bub?
Strickland waved him out of the room. I'm in no mood for this crap. Get the hell out of here. Jerry looked up, cigarette smoldering. He put away his pad and stood.
Ah, well, this is going to be in the morning edition. And I was at the Sliders, Chief, and I got notes.
Jerry wandered out the screen door. He's an old windbag, said Jones. He prints anything and I'll lock him up. Strickland turned to Wilmot and Amy Pollard. Miss Pollard, please, again tell me what you saw when you drove up here. Amy was more composed and cleared her throat. I drove up and I finished listening to my tape. Well, how long was that? A couple of minutes and I went inside. Her eyes filled again. I didn't kill him, Coach. Jones pressed his lips and glanced at Strickland. Who would want him dead? Brad knew a lot of people I don't know. Wendell looked up from a newspaper. Yo! Sergeant Harris here is going to bring you back to the station. Jones thought she would be devastated by the news of being locked up, but she tearfully nodded and seemed to accept her circumstance. I understand. And again, you can talk with your lawyer. Well, we will be using Susan Merkel Brown, said Wilmot. Campus legal aid? Asked Jones. I know other lawyers. Why, have you needed a lawyer before, Mr. Jones? Asked Wilmot. Jones squinted. L.G. Bentley is right here in town, and you've already thrown him out. You bring in this Merkel woman. Oh, sure, well, Bentley is a male lawyer. Oh, come on, what difference does that make? L.G. is an experienced man. I mean lawyer. He's the best. May we use the phone to call Ms. Merkel Brown? Asked Wilmot. Jones rolled his eyes as Amy grabbed his wrist. Her moist brown eyes drooped like a puppy dog looking for food at the table. Coach, I didn't kill Brad. Please, help me. Jones paused. He wanted to leave for Maine and relax for 10 days, but he did not think that Amy Pollard killed Brad Davis. He had no side road theories or even a scenario. All right, I'll see what I can do.